All right, guys, I am at the Western Hunt Expo 2024. I'm at the Weatherby booth with Luke.
Yes, sir.
I just have a few fun questions for you, Luke.
Let's go.
7mm is kind of the craze right now.
So
Is Weatherby looking at making another 7 caliber?
Don't spy on us. We've actually, you know, there's been chat on some of the forums and whatnot of like a 7.378.
Okay.
I would say that's something that we want to do someday.
Well, Luke from Weatherby just dropped a bombshell. A 7mm 378 Weatherby. Whew. In front of me is one of the flattest, fastest shooting magnums right now. It's the 28 Nosler. The 28 Nosler can push a 175 grain bullet, 32, 3250. A 7mm 378 Weatherby, which is what this is, dwarfs the 28 Nosler. Think 175 grain, 3,400 plus feet per second. Wow. Now this isn't the first high ultra velocity magnum in 7mm. The current king of velocity in 7mm is the 7mm rum. The problem that you get when you put these extremely large cases in a 7mm diameter is just how overbore they are. One of the issues I think Weatherby will have is trying to get extreme velocities in a 26-inch barrel. Now, if they released a gun in a 30-inch barrel, yeah, they could easily push well over 3,400 feet per second. In a 26-inch barrel, I think it's going to be rough. Just looking at the 7mm rum data for, say, a 175 grain, Nosler says you can only get 3158. That's in a 26-inch barrel. That's not great. I mean, the 28 Nosler can easily achieve that. So that's some of the problems is just how overbore it is, and you really need a long barrel to get the velocities you would want out of a rum. Let's just take a look at most of the lineup for 7mm. Let's start with the very efficient, I think one of the most underrated 7mm, the 7mm-08 Remington. It has a case capacity of around 47 grains. We step up to probably my favorite 7mm. I think the one that deserves a lot more attention than it gets, the 280 Ackley Improved. It has a case capacity of around 64 grains. Then we get to the brand new 7mm PRC. This one has a case capacity of 75 grains. So you're pushing a 175 grain max, 3,000 feet per second. We get up to the old reliable, most popular 7mm Magnum. It is the 7mm Remington Magnum. It has a case capacity of 77 grains. It is a little bit faster than a 7 PRC. Then we get up to the big boys. Let's start with the 28 Nosler. This has a case capacity of around 90 grains. Now, I don't have 7mm rum or a Wildcat 7mm 378. I do have the 30 caliber versions, and they're very similar. So a 7mm rum case capacity is 98 grains, and then just to put things into perspective, a 7mm 378 Weatherby would have around 120 grain case capacity, which dwarfs all of these. Now, before we look at the load data for the 7mm 378, there's really two powders that come to mind when I think of being able to get the velocities that you would want out of a 7.378. First, Ramshot LRT. I've loaded this previously in my 300 Weatherby. It turned my 300 Weatherby into a 378 Weatherby with the velocities. 225 grain at 3,100 feet per second. So LRT is definitely a powder you could use, and the other one is US 869, which arguably could get you faster velocities. Let's look at the hypothetical 7.378 load data and ballistics. 175 grain AccuBond long range at 3,400 feet per second. We are looking at almost 4,500 foot-pounds of energy. Let's go out to 400 yards. The bullet's going 2787 feet per second and over 3,000 foot-pounds. Also, check out that drop at 400, one-sided in at 100. 16.8. Holy cow, is this cartridge flat. I did this out to 900 yards. Obviously, this cartridge is very much made for long distance. 900, it's going 2127 feet per second and still 1758 foot-pounds and only 142.5 inches of drop. At 1000, you still have over 1500 foot-pounds and I believe about 187 inches of drop, making this one of the flattest shooting cartridges ever created. Now let's compare popular 7mm to hopefully the new 7mm-378, if it ever comes. Let's start with the 7PRC. It's the hottest one. We're going to use Hornady ELDX factory ammo, 175 ELDX at 2,900 feet per second. Yeah, it's supposed to be 3,000, but I've yet to see a 24-inch barrel, maybe even a 26-inch barrel, even get close to 3,000. So we're going to go 2,900. With an energy of 3269 foot-pounds at 500 yards, 2,261 feet per second, just a little below 2,000 foot-pounds at 500, 44.5 inches of drop. Out to 1,000, 1,712 feet per second, and your energy 1,139 foot-pounds. Drop in inches, that's 262.5 inches and 25 MOA adjustment. Next, let's look at the 28 Nosler with its factory ammo 175 grain AccuBond long range at 3125 feet per second. Now this is definitely not an apples to apples because we are using a different bullet for the Nosler. Muzzle velocity 3125, energy 3806 foot-pounds at 500, 2,415 feet per second, 2267 foot-pounds of energy, 37.8 at 500. The 28 Nosler is really, well, stomping on the 7PRC. And at 1,000, 1,810 feet per second, so not a huge difference at 1,000. That higher BC ELDX is kind of almost catching up. And in the energy, well, it's about 150 foot-pound difference with the advantage to the 28 Nosler. 227.8 inches of drop, only 21.7 MOA. So a good advantage for the 28 Nosler. Lastly, the 7mm-378 with a 175 grain. We're going to use ELDX. I mean, there's no factory ammo for it, so this is all hypothetical. I think it's going to be around 3,300 feet per second. Just knowing factory ammo, it's usually not near as crazy as hand loads. Muzzle velocity 33, 4,232 foot-pounds at 500 yards, 2,604 feet per second. That's going fast. 2,635 foot-pounds, already almost 700 more foot-pounds than a 7PRC at 500. 32.6 inches of drop compared to 44.5 and 37.8. Whew. At 1,000, 2,005 feet per second. So almost 300 feet per second faster than a 7PRC and about 200 feet per second faster than 28 Nosler. Energy, 1562, 195.3 inches of drop, and an MOA that's only basically 18.5 MOA. Crazy. So the question is, when is this cartridge coming out? Is it coming out? I have no idea. I think Weatherby really wants it to happen, so yeah, I think it probably will. Who knows when, though. We've talked a lot about the positives of the 7.378 Weatherby. What are some of the negatives? Well, if you thought the 6.5-300 Weatherby and the 30.378 Weatherby had really short barrel life, well, this guy is the king of short barrel life. I have no idea on how many rounds would burn your barrel out on, but it's going to be pretty low. But again, this is going to be tailored towards hunting and not a target cartridge where you'll need longer barrel life. Wow, this cartridge could be the king of flat shooting and just an incredible hunting round.